Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to learn AWS Lambda. I hope I can clear all your doubts. So let's start learning AWS Lambda. Before learning Lambda, we have to understand what is serverless architecture. In the simple words, serverless means running your code or application without managing servers. AWS will handle managing all the hardware, security, and scaling up and down and execution. So we only have to focus on our application. Now let's discuss AWS Lambda. AWS Lambda is a serverless compute service provided by Amazon. We have already discussed this. Instead, Lambda is event driven, meaning it requires some kind of event to trigger the code. To put it simply, Lambda lets you focus on your code while AWS takes care of the heavy lifting behind the scenes. Now the key features of AWS Lambda. First is auto scaling. Depending on the traffic your application is receiving, the AWS will scale it up or scale it down. For example, at midnight, no one is accessing your application. Then AWS will scale it down. Next is cost. AWS Lambda offers pay per use model, meaning you are charged based on the number of requests and the duration your code runs for. Sometimes it's even cheaper than the EC2 service. Next is monitoring of application. Lambda integrates the CloudWatch service for monitoring and logging. Lambda also creates a log of each time the code was triggered. And lastly, service integration. Lambda can use other services provided by AWS like S3, DynamoDB, and many more. For example, suppose you have the task of creating thumbnails of the images that are being uploaded on S3. For this scenario, Lambda will be triggered each time a picture is uploaded on S3. And, and these are some common uses of AWS Lambda. First is API hosting. Suppose you have a mobile application and you want to host an API for it, then Lambda can be a better option for you. Second is event processing. As I said, Lambda function is triggered each time an event occurs. And lastly, timer based jobs. For example, when you have a working server hosted on EC2 instances, but at the midnight those instances are not used, then you might need to stop them. To automate this task, we can create a Lambda function. And these are the benefits of using Lambda. As we have already discussed, no servers to manage, cost efficient. Sometimes the Lambda service is more cost efficient than EC2, and it supports auto scaling. Performance. You can optimize your Lambda functions performance by allocating more memory and fine-tuning your code. Fine-tuning refers to the optimization of code that you have written. Seamless integration. Lambda integrates well with the other AWS services. And lastly, Lambda cold start. Whenever the first request is sent to the Lambda function, it may take a little longer to run because it will be asking AWS for the resources.